The cathedral had been abandoned for decades, but Alara didn't know that when she pushed through its heavy oak doors. She only knew that the storm outside was merciless, and the ancient building promised shelter. Rain had soaked through her coat, plastered her dark hair against her cheeks, and filled her boots with cold water. She stumbled inside, gasping, and let the door swing shut behind her with a boom that echoed through the cavernous space. Darkness swallowed her whole. Alara fumbled in her pocket for her phone, hands trembling. The screen's pale glow illuminated only a few feet around her, enough to see cracked stone floors and the suggestion of towering columns disappearing into shadow above. The air smelled of dust and something else, something ancient and metallic, like old coins left too long in a forgotten drawer. "Hello?" Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Silence answered, thick and waiting. She hadn't meant to come here. The hiking trail she'd been following had simply vanished in the downpour, and she'd been walking blind through the forest for what felt like hours before stumbling onto this place. Tomorrow, when the storm passed, she'd find her way back to civilization. Tonight, she just needed to wait it out. Alara moved deeper into the cathedral, her phone's light dancing across broken pews and walls where faded frescoes depicted scenes she couldn't quite make out. Saints, perhaps, or angels. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her progress. That's when she saw the statue. It stood at the far end of the nave, where the altar should have been. Even from a distance, Alara could tell it was unlike anything else in the crumbling building. While everything around it had succumbed to decay, the statue remained pristine, a figure of a woman carved from pale stone that seemed to hold its own luminescence, as if moonlight lived inside the marble. The statue was weeping. Alara's breath caught. She moved closer, rational thoughts warring with what her eyes were telling her. Stone couldn't cry. It was impossible. But as she approached, there was no denying the tears that traced down the statue's carved cheeks, catching the light from her phone like liquid silver. The woman's face was turned upward, eyes closed, expression caught between sorrow and something else, longing perhaps, or hope. Her hands were outstretched, palms open, as if offering something or asking for it. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Alara had seen famous sculptures in museums, but none had captured such raw emotion in cold stone. She reached out without thinking. The moment her fingertips touched the statue's outstretched hand, the world lurched sideways. Light exploded behind Alara's eyes. Not the harsh brightness of the sun, but something deeper, older, colors she had no names for. She tried to pull her hand back but couldn't move. Her body had become a distant thing, barely relevant. Images flooded her mind. A woman who looked exactly like the statue, but alive, breathing, her stone-gray eyes wide with terror. A ritual in this very cathedral when it was young and whole, candles burning, voices chanting in a language Alara didn't recognize. The woman, not a statue then, never meant to be a statue, screaming as magic wrapped around her like chains. A punishment, a curse, a warning. Alara saw the woman's crime. She had loved someone forbidden, had used her magic to try to save him from a death sentence, had challenged the authority of those who ruled this place. And so they had bound her, frozen her in stone, condemned her to watch centuries pass while trapped in her moment of greatest grief. But curses have conditions. They always do. "Break my chains," a voice whispered, not in Alara's ears but in her mind, soft as falling snow. "Set me free, and I will give you what you seek most." Alara wanted to ask what she supposedly sought, but the voice was already showing her. More images. Her brother's hospital bed, his wasting illness that no doctor could name or cure. She saw herself sitting beside him yesterday, holding his hand, watching him sleep and wondering if each breath would be his last. She saw her own desperation, the reason she'd come hiking alone into these mountains, not for adventure, but to escape the suffocating helplessness that had become her daily existence. "I can heal him," the voice promised. "I can save him. But first, you must save me." The light faded. Alara stumbled backward, her hand finally her own again. She hit the floor hard, phone skittering away across the stones. For a moment, she just sat there, heart hammering, trying to convince herself she'd imagined everything. But the statue's tears still gleamed silver in the darkness, and when Alara looked at its face, she could have sworn the stone lips had curved into the barest suggestion of a smile. "How?" Alara asked the silence. "How do I free you?" The answer came like a memory that wasn't hers. She saw 3 objects, scattered across the world, pieces of the original curse that kept the woman bound. A chalice in a collector's vault in Prague, a dagger in a museum in Cairo, a mirror in a private estate in Scotland. Each one had been present at the original ritual. Each one held a portion of the binding magic. Destroy them all, and the curse would break. That's impossible, Alara said aloud. I don't even know where to start. I don't have money for travel. I don't have connections. You have something more valuable. The voice in her mind was gentle, almost amused. You have determination. You have love. And now, you have my gift. Warmth bloomed in Alara's chest, spreading through her limbs like honey in tea. When she looked down at her hands, they were glowing with a soft golden light. The light sank into her skin, becoming part of her, and with it came knowledge, an understanding of power she'd never known she could possess. Magic, real magic. Not the stage tricks and illusions she'd seen, but something fundamental, something that could reshape reality with intention and will. This is only a fraction of what I once wielded, the voice explained. Enough to help you on your quest, but not enough to free me on its own. The curse binds my power as surely as it binds my body. You must do this, Alara. You must choose to do this. Alara climbed to her feet on shaking legs. She retrieved her phone, its mundane light seeming dim and pale compared to the glow that had just filled her. Her mind raced. This was insane. This was impossible. She should leave right now. Chalk this up to stress and exhaustion, forget it ever happened. But the images of her brother wouldn't leave her mind. And beneath her skin, magic hummed like a second heartbeat. If I do this, Alara said slowly, and you're lying, if you can't really heal him, then I will have gained nothing but a few years of freedom before guilt, and your curse destroy me. The voice replied, I cannot lie to you, Alara. Not now. The moment you touched me, we became bound together in a different way. You will know if I break my word. You will feel it. And Alara realized, with a shock that sent ice down her spine, that it was true. There was a connection now between her and the statue, fine as spider silk, but stronger than steel. She could sense the woman trapped inside the stone, could feel her sincerity like a pulse. She could also feel her desperation. What's your name? Alara asked. A pause, as if the question was unexpected. Then, Lysandra. My name was Lysandra, before they took everything else from me. Alara looked at the statue, at Lysandra, for a long moment. Outside, the storm still raged. Tomorrow, she'd have to make her way back to town, back to her brother's bedside, back to watching him fade. Unless she chose something different. Unless she became someone different. Okay, Alara whispered. Okay, I'll do it. I'll free you. She felt Lysandra's relief like a wave of warmth. Thank you. Thank you. I will guide you as much as I can. The magic I've given you will help. It will make you faster, stronger, more resilient. You'll find you can do things you never dreamed possible. But be careful. The magic comes from me, and those who bound me will sense its use if you're not subtle. Who were they? The ones who cursed you? An order of priests who served a god whose name has been forgotten. They're gone now, their god silent, their power broken. But their curse remains, and there are others, collectors, scholars of the occult, those who stumble onto remnants of old magic. They guard the artifacts jealously. Getting to them won't be simple. Alara almost laughed. Nothing about this was simple, but she thought of her brother's wasted hand in hers, and she set her jaw. Tell me about the chalice, she said. The one in Prague. That's closest to here, right? The voice in her mind warmed with approval, and as Alara sat on the cathedral floor with her phone's light casting strange shadows around her, Lysandra began to share what she knew. The next 3 months transformed Alara's life in ways she couldn't have imagined. The storm passed by Mourning, and she made her way back to the trailhead, then to the small town where she'd left her car. She drove home in a daze, the magic Lysandra had given her pulsing just beneath her skin like a secret heartbeat. Her brother was sleeping when she arrived at the hospital. She sat beside him, holding his hand, and tried to explain where she'd been. He smiled weakly and told her she looked different somehow. Brighter. She almost told him everything then, but held back. What if she failed? What if this was all some elaborate delusion brought on by grief and stress? But when a nurse fumbled a tray of medical instruments and they began to fall, Alara's hand moved faster than thought, catching them all before they could clatter to the floor. The nurse stared. Alara stared. Her brother, too weak to do more than blink, gave her a questioning look. Quick reflexes, Alara managed. Been practicing. That night, in her small apartment, she experimented with the magic. Lysandra's voice guided her, patient and encouraging. Alara learned to move like shadows, to blend into backgrounds, to convince people to look away at crucial moments. She learned to feel the threads of intention that connected objects to their owners, to read the history of a thing just by touching it, and she learned to plan. Prague first. She sold everything she could spare, maxed out her credit cards, and bought a plane ticket with money she didn't have and couldn't afford. Her brother's hospital bills were already drowning her. What was a little more debt compared to his life? The collector who owned the chalice was named Victor Kovarj, and he kept his treasures in a climate-controlled vault beneath his mansion in the city's old quarter. Alara spent a week learning his routines, watching his security, feeling for weaknesses. Lysandra's magic made her patient. It made her precise. It made her better than she'd ever been at anything. On a moonless night, Alara slipped into the mansion like smoke. The security systems turned blind at her touch. The locks opened for her as if they wanted to. She moved through halls lined with stolen antiquities and forbidden relics, following the pull of the chalice in her chest. It sat on a pedestal in the vault, gleaming gold and jeweled. The moment Alara saw it, she felt its wrongness, the curse magic woven into its metal, keeping Lysandra bound. Her stomach turned. She lifted it carefully. The chalice was lighter than it looked, and warm to the touch. Lysandra's voice whispered instructions, and Alara spoke words in that ancient language, words that felt like broken glass in her mouth. The chalice cracked down the middle with a sound like a bell being struck. Light poured from the fissure, not golden like Alara's magic, but sickly green, the color of infection. The curse magic writhed like a living thing, trying to reform, trying to maintain its hold. Alara spoke the words again, louder, and the chalice shattered completely. She felt it the moment the binding broke, felt Lysandra gasp in distant relief as one of her chains fell away. The connection between them thrummed with gratitude. "One down," Alara whispered. "Two to go." The alarms began to wail as she ran. Cairo was harder. The dagger was in a museum, yes, but not on display. It was in a restricted section, available only to scholars who could prove they had legitimate research reasons for accessing it. More than that, it was being studied by a team of archaeologists who were beginning to understand what it really was. They'd increased security around it. They suspected its power. Alara spent 2 weeks in Cairo, working as a translator for tourists to fund her extended stay. Lysandra's magic had enhanced her mind as well as her body. Languages came easily now, patterns revealing themselves in the chaos. She made enough money to survive and used every spare moment to study the museum's layout. "They know what it is," Lysandra told her one night, as Alara sat on a rooftop overlooking the city, the dagger's location pulling at her like a compass pointing north. "They don't understand the full depth of the curse, but they sense the magic. That makes them dangerous. Can they use it? The magic? No, but they can protect it from those who can. You'll need to be more careful this time." Alara was careful. She was patient. She waited until the museum hosted a gala for wealthy donors, and she slipped in among the catering staff, her magic making the organizers forget they hadn't hired her. She moved through the party with trays of champagne, listening to conversations, learning who had access to the restricted areas. One of the archaeologists, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, wore her keycard on a lanyard around her neck. Alara bumped into her accidentally on purpose, apologized profusely, and palmed the card in the chaos of apologies and spilled drinks. Later, when the party was winding down, Alara made her way into the restricted section. Her magic kept the cameras from seeing her, kept the guards from noticing her presence. She found the dagger in a climate-controlled case, its blade still sharp after centuries, runes carved along its length glowing faintly in the darkness. The moment she touched it, pain lanced through her hand. "It's fighting back," Lysandra warned. "The curse knows what we're trying to do. Be strong, Alara." Alara gritted her teeth and spoke the breaking words. The dagger resisted, its magic flaring hot enough to burn. But she held on, pouring her will into the spell. And finally, the blade cracked. The curse magic erupted like a geyser, screaming in a voice that had no sound. Alara felt Lysandra gasp again, felt another chain snap free. "Two!" Alara panted, dropping the broken dagger. "One more!" She ran before anyone could find her, her burned hand already healing with magic that felt like cool water on fire. Scotland was where everything almost fell apart. The mirror was in a private estate owned by a woman named Lady Catherine Blackwood, a collector who knew exactly what she possessed. More than that, she was a practitioner herself, not as powerful as Lysandra had been, but skilled enough to recognize when someone was using magic near her property. Alara knew before she even arrived that this would be the hardest theft yet. She was right. Lady Blackwood's estate was protected by more than locks and guards. Wards shimmered invisible around the property, alarms waiting to sing at the first touch of hostile magic. Alara could feel them from half a mile away, like spiderwebs waiting to catch her. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted to Lysandra one evening, standing on a hill overlooking the estate. Rain misted around her, typical for the Scottish Highlands. "You can," Lysandra said gently. "You've come so far, Alara. Your brother—" "Don't." Ilara's voice cracked. "Don't talk about him right now. I need to think." She'd called the hospital yesterday. Her brother was worse. The doctors were talking about comfort care, about making his final days peaceful. She was running out of time, but rushing would get her caught or killed, and then he'd die anyway. Alara spent another week planning, watching, learning. She discovered that Lady Blackwood had a weakness, a granddaughter who visited every Sunday, a young woman in her 20s who studied art history at university. The wards recognized the granddaughter's magical signature and let her pass freely. It was risky. It was probably wrong. But Alara was desperate. She approached the granddaughter at a coffee shop in the nearest town, struck up a conversation about art and history, and spent an afternoon building rapport. The young woman, Emma, was sweet and earnest, passionate about her studies. She reminded Alara of who she used to be, before illness and desperation had changed her. "I'm sorry," Alara whispered when Emma turned away to order another coffee. She reached out with her magic, just a touch, just enough to leave the faintest trace of Emma's signature on herself. It felt like betrayal, but it worked. The wards let her through when she approached Sunday evening, recognizing what they thought was Emma's presence. Alara slipped into the estate like a ghost, her heart pounding with guilt and determination. The mirror hung in Lady Blackwood's private study, and the moment Alara saw it, she understood why it had been kept. It was beautiful, an antique with a frame of carved silver, the glass dark and deep, reflecting not quite what stood before it. When Alara looked into it, she saw herself, but also saw Lysandra standing beside her reflection, stone face somehow visible in the mirror's depths. Lysandra's carved eyes opened and looked at her. "The last chain," Lysandra whispered. "Break it, and I'm free. Break it, and your brother lives." Alara reached for the mirror, and Lady Blackwood stepped into the doorway. "I was wondering when you'd come," the older woman said calmly. She held no weapon, but her hands glowed with restrained power. "I've felt you circling like a hawk for weeks. You want the mirror." Alara froze. "I need it." "No." Lady Blackwood moved closer, her eyes sharp and assessing. "You need whatever it promises you. That's different. Do you even know what that mirror truly is? What breaking it will cost? It's part of a curse. I'm freeing someone who was wrongly imprisoned." "Wrongly?" Lady Blackwood laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Child, do you know why Lysandra was bound? Has she told you the whole truth?" Alara's stomach dropped. "She used magic to save someone she loved. The priests punished her for it." "She used death magic," Lady Blackwood corrected. "She killed 3 innocent people to fuel a resurrection spell. The man she loved was a murderer, scheduled to hang for his crimes. She slaughtered a mother and her 2 children to bring him back. The priest stopped her before she could complete the ritual, but those 3 souls were already forfeit." "No." Alara looked at the mirror, at Lysandra's reflection. "No, that's not—" But the connection between them pulsed with confirmation, and Alara felt the truth of it like a knife in her chest. Lysandra had lied, not completely, but by omission, by framing, by letting Alara believe she was a martyr instead of a murderer. "She promised she couldn't lie to me," Alara said weakly. "She didn't lie," Lady Blackwood replied. "She just didn't tell you everything. That's how the clever ones work." In the mirror, Lysandra's reflection smiled. "Please," she said. "Alara, please. I know what I did was wrong. I've had centuries to regret it. But your brother, I can still save him. I promised. Just break the mirror." Alara's hand trembled. Her brother was dying. Right now, as she stood here, he was dying. And Lysandra, monster or not, could save him. Would that make Alara a monster too? Did it matter? "If you free her," Lady Blackwood said quietly, "she'll be powerful again. More powerful than before, because suffering has fed her magic for hundreds of years. She'll be grateful to you at first, yes. She might even heal your brother. But then what? She's already shown you she'll kill for what she wants. How many more will die? I don't care." The words came out harsh, desperate. "I don't care about anything except my brother. He's good. He's kind. He doesn't deserve to die like this." And those 3 souls Lysandra took? Did they deserve to die like that? Alara closed her eyes. She could feel Lysandra through their connection, Feel her hunger, her rage, her centuries of trapped fury waiting to be unleashed. She could also feel the truth of the promise. Lysandra would heal her brother. She would keep that much of her word. But Lady Blackwood was right. After that, after the debt was paid, Lysandra would be free. Free and angry and powerful. There's another way, Lady Blackwood said softly. A harder way, but a better one. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small vial of shimmering liquid. This is a potion I've been developing. A cure for magical corruption. It's experimental, untested on humans. But the theory is sound. It might heal your brother. No guarantees, but a chance. A real chance. Why would you help me? Alara asked. Because you remind me of myself at your age. Desperate. Willing to burn the world for the people I loved. Lady Blackwood smiled sadly. I made the wrong choice then. I'm hoping you'll make a better one. Alara looked at the mirror. At Lysandra's reflection, beautiful and pleading and utterly ruthless. She looked at the vial in Lady Blackwood's hand. She thought of her brother, and of the mother and 2 children Lysandra had murdered, and she made her choice. I'm sorry, Alara whispered to Lysandra. I'm so sorry. She turned away from the mirror. Lysandra's scream echoed through their connection, rage and betrayal and despair. The magic she'd given Alara tried to tear itself free, to punish her for breaking faith. Alara collapsed, gasping, as power burned through her veins like acid. Lady Blackwood caught her before she hit the floor. She pressed the vial into Alara's hand and spoke words of unbinding, severing the connection between Alara and Lysandra. The magic fled, leaving Alara hollow and exhausted. It's done, Lady Blackwood murmured. You're free of her. Alara clutched the vial like a lifeline. Will this really work? For my brother? I don't know, Lady Blackwood admitted. But it's honest. No curses, no bargains, no blood price. Just medicine and hope. Sometimes that's enough. 3 weeks later, Alara sat in her brother's hospital room and watched him sleep. His color was better. His breathing was easier. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, talking about remission, about recovery, about miracles. Lady Blackwood's potion had worked. Alara still felt hollow sometimes, the absence of magic like a missing limb. She'd tasted power and given it up, and some days she wondered if she'd made the right choice. But then her brother would wake and smile at her, and she knew. She'd saved him the right way, the hard way. And somewhere in an abandoned cathedral in the mountains, a statue still wept silver tears, waiting for a freedom that might never come. Alara thought about Lysandra sometimes, trapped in stone. She thought about the mother and her children. She thought about all the choices that led to curses and consequences. Then she took her brother's hand and held on tight, grateful for second chances and the wisdom to choose them when they came. Outside, the sun rose on another day, and Alara breathed in the light.